Thursday night, the president dined with his lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, and the former mayor of New York is joining me now. Mr. Mayor, thanks so much for joining me. We appreciate it. There's been a lot of news this week about the back and forth with the special counsel about whether there's going to be an interview. I want to play for you the rationale you've offered as to why you don't want the president to be questioned about his dealings with then FBI Director James Comey. Take a listen.
Good. We're walking him into a possible perjury trap, not because he isn't telling the truth, but because somebody else isn't telling the truth, who they would credit, namely Comey. They have
That's a problem.
Indicated to us, even in our discussions, a preference for Comey, a preference for some of these other people.
How exactly has the Mueller team led you to believe they have a preference for Comey, that they would side with him? What have they said?
Well, first of all, I mean, we haven't talked to them. I haven't talked to them in about 2 months, so this goes back 2 months ago. Also, it goes back to conversations they had with John Dowd, who I talk to several times a week. I guess the clearest one is that we've offered to give them what you call a proffer. In other words, we'll tell them the president's answers to everything. They already know them. Let me give you a simple example. Flynn. The president says he never told Comey that he should go easy on Flynn. Comey says the president did. He put it in his memo. Now, we do have a prior contradictory statement by Comey under oath to the contrary, but put that aside. That is, if we ever had a trial, I don't think we will. So if he goes in and testifies to that under oath, instead of just this being a dispute, they can say it's perjury if they elect to believe Comey instead of Trump, and they should know by now who they believe.
Right, but you said that they've indicated that they already side with Comey, and I'm wondering, what have they said to lead you to that impression?
That's what they said. They said they're not willing to tell us what their purpose is for asking that question, since they already know the answer. So, you know, we've been doing this a long time, Jay and I know the purpose for it. The purpose for it is to write up some kind of perjury thing. That's what we mean by, there's an article in National Review this week by Andy McCarthy, who was a very fine prosecutor, that explains how you put together a perjury trap, and this is probably a perfect example of it.
You said one reason why the president doesn't need to sit for questions about his dealings with Comey is because he's already given his explanations. He's already made them public. I just want to be clear exactly what happened in that conversation with Comey about Michael Flynn. What exactly did President Trump say?
There was no conversation about Michael Flynn. The president didn't find out that Comey believed there was until about, I think it was February when it supposedly took place. Memo came out in May. And in between, Comey testified under oath that in no way had he been obstructed at any time. And then all of a sudden, in May, he says he felt obstructed. He felt pressured by that comment. You should go easy on Flynn. So we maintain that the president didn't say that. But if we do that under oath, we end up in a sort of Martha Stewart situation.
But, Mr. Mayor, you told ABC News last month that the president told Comey, quote, "Can you give him a break?" Now you're saying that they never had...
I never told ABC that. That's crazy. I mean, I never said that. What I said was, that is what Comey is saying Trump said. I have always said the president denies it. Look, it would be easier for me if the president did say that. Jay and I could defend that. The statement, "go easy on him," is hardly an obstruction. Obstruction involves a threat. Obstruction involves false testimony. Obstruction involves an offer of money. It has to be corrupt. Just saying, exercise your prosecutorial discretion to give a general a break, I had that happen all the time to me when I was a prosecutor.
So you're saying that President Trump and James Comey never discussed Michael Flynn?
That is what he will testify to if he's asked that question. They already know that. So why are they asking us for him to repeat what they already know under oath?
And you're also saying that a month ago you didn't tell ABC News that he said something along the lines of can you give him a break?
No, I did not. I said that is what Comey says.
And let me ask you a question, just a larger philosophical question. I know you're defending your client, but for the record, do you think that a president of the United States, any president, can ever obstruct justice, or do you think that's impossible because the president's the executive in charge of the Justice Department?
Well, there are people who argue that he could never obstruct justice. I think that's a too far-fetched an argument. We don't have to make it, obviously. I mean, suppose a president would put a gun to someone's head and say, "I'm going to kill you unless you stop testifying or don't testify or say what I want you to say." Obviously, I can't imagine that isn't an obstruction of justice. I think the narrower argument is when he's exercising his power as president. Obviously, using a gun is not exercising his power as president, and he's firing somebody. Then it becomes very, very questionable whether it can be an obstruction of justice. And in this particular case, he gave other reasons that are perfectly legitimate. The best interview is the one with Lester Holt. Although he mentions the Russia investigation, he ends the interview by saying, I fully expect that somebody else will take his place, and I may be even looking at a longer investigation. So that can't be obstruction. I mean, he knows that somebody is going to replace Comey, and somebody did a few days later.
You've been saying that all this needs to be over by the end of the month, by September 1st. Take a listen to what you said on Fox News this week.
Sure. If it isn't over by September, then we have a very, very serious violation of the Justice Department rules that you shouldn't be conducting one of these investigations in the 60-day period.
Now, as you know, that's not actually accurate. There is a DOJ custom not to make public disclosures about investigations within 60 days of an election, but there's no DOJ rule that every investigation needs to be shut down within 60 days of an election.
Of course not one that is imminent or one that has to be done or some serious loss of evidence could take place. But there is a Justice Department practice, and he's bound by it, that to the best you can, you shouldn't be carrying these things on right before an election. You can't carry on this investigation without a leak. I mean, I don't know who's doing it, but maybe it's the special counsel, maybe it's some of the agents, maybe it's some of the defense lawyers. I don't know, but everything gets leaked, or just about everything. So, and you don't want to do what Comey did, which is to have some serious disclosure take place out of your control 10 days before the election.
So the special counsel has scheduled grand jury testimony from Roger Stone associate Randy Credico on September 7th, according to Credico's attorney. That's after your September 1st deadline. What's your response?
September 1st was the date that Bob Mueller gave me back 2 months ago, where he said, when we were talking about getting his report done, he threw out the date September 1 as being a reasonable date to get it done. And maybe I credited too much. I thought he meant, well, that'll keep us clear of the elections. And they did say something like they didn't want to repeat some of the mistakes that Comey made. So maybe I put those two things together, or Jay did, and we came away with the idea that they're trying to get it done by then. There also seemed for the first time to be, I'm not saying pressure us, but they seem to be trying to speed us up to give him an answer. So we may be arguing over something here we don't have to argue over. I think they feel the necessity to get as close as they can to that 60-day period as we do. I mean, after all, they're the ones who are going to be criticized for it, not us.
You have said that you think that the ongoing Russia investigation might help Republicans in the midterms because President Trump, quote, needs something to energize his voters. What do you say to critics who say that you and your team seem to be intentionally dragging out these interview negotiations in order to energize the GOP base?
Well, you could argue either way about the political effect of it. Kind of like we're being like Comey now and trying to figure out the political implications of an investigation. You could also say it might energize the other base because they're so intent on. I mean, some of them have come out for impeachment before the investigation. Be that as it may, the most important thing is we shouldn't be carrying on this investigation any longer than we have to. It can get done by early September. They have all the information they need to write a report and either clear the president, raise questions, do whatever they want to do. After all, the ultimate decision maker here will be Rosenstein, not Mueller.
Now, you're still arguing about the interview and whether or not there should be that the Mueller can even ask about any of the dealings with Comey.
Well, I mean, I should be clear. We're not going to take any questions on Comey because we believe that we would be almost committing malpractice by doing that. They've made it clear that they will not indicate to us what their view on this is, and without that, we run the risk of their having the ability to cite him for perjury.
I just want to play for you because earlier in the interview I was talking about a comment you made to ABC News a month ago about what exactly President Trump said to Comey. You're now saying that the president tells you that he said nothing.
I've been saying that from the beginning.
Okay, but I'm
talking about Comey's rendition.
I just want to play the sound so people understand why I asked the question.
Sure. Okay.
How is he a good witness for the president if he's saying that the president was asking him, directing him, in his words, to let the Michael Flynn investigation go?
He didn't direct him to do that. What he said to him was, can you give him a break?
Comey says he...
So he didn't direct him to. What he said was, can you give him a break? You said that. I mean,
yeah, I said it, but I also said before that I'm talking about their version of it. Look, lawyers argue in the alternative. I know it's complicated, but my goodness, we've been over it long enough that, I mean, why would I say something that isn't true? I mean, the president didn't say to him, go easy on Flynn or anything about Flynn. He's saying that. I am talking about their alternative. I'm saying the conversation never took place. But if it did take place, and here's the conversation that's alleged, it is not illegal to have said that. That's what I'm saying. We call it arguing in the alternative.
all right, it was a little confusing, I suppose.
So I appreciate that, but, you know, I've been asked the question numerous times. That's the answer, and, you know, if I confused it, I'm sorry.
I do want to ask you one question about one of your nemeses, Mr. Michael Avenatti, the attorney for Stormy Daniels.
Who?
Michael Avenatti. So he was speaking at the Democratic Wing-Ding dinner. It's a fundraiser at the Iowa State Fair this week. He said he's seriously considering a run for the White House against President Trump. Wondering what your thoughts are on Mr. Avenatti running for president.
Well, he was speaking at the Wingnut, what was that?
Wing-Ding dinner. It's the Iowa Democratic Party fundraiser.
The Wing-Ding dinner, okay. That sounds like the right place for him to speak. Look, he has every right to do what he wants. I mean, I think I'd settle the bankruptcy situation where he owes $10 million first, but hey, it's up to him.
Well, there's a history of people with bankruptcies in their past running for president. Mayor Giuliani. Mayor Giuliani.
That's the cheap shot. That's the cheap shot.
Mayor Giuliani, good to see you. Thank you so much.
All right,
Appreciate it.